Welcome, everyone. Give everyone a few minutes to get in here before we get started. Oh, hope everyone's having a wonderful week so far, about halfway through, right? Weekend is on it's just almost here. It's on the rise. We're over the hump, right? Hello, Ronnie. Welcome. Good to have you here. Give me a shout in the chat. Love to hear from you guys. How you doing? Let me know how you enjoyed Monday's session. If you got a chance to watch that replay or not, it's been posted. So if you didn't know that, it is up on my YouTube channel. We'll get that into the webinar library next week. So watch out for that. Oh, let's see here. I had a blast on Monday learning about book cover design and all that fun stuff. It was really cool to learn and see how that process works with Damon from Demonza. Welcome, George. Hello. Ted, welcome. Chris, welcome from Scotland. Good to have you back. Stephen, welcome again. Good to see you. Excellent. Harold, welcome. Great session Monday. Oh, glad you enjoyed it, Harold. That's great. Glad to hear it. Well, I'm really excited to be talking about revision today. Yes, this is a presentation that I have been working on revising, ironically, improving and progressing. And so I'm excited to share some of the new additions and things that are coming in this presentation. It's going to be a lot of fun. Priscilla, welcome from Las Vegas. Diana from Somerset, UK. Eva, Monday was great. So much wisdom about cover design. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Eva. That's great. If you guys haven't seen that, or if you missed it, you want to check that out, you can go to my YouTube channel and watch that right away. It's already posted and ready to go. Here, maybe I'll drop that link for you guys while I'm thinking about it. Here, I'll just drop all my links there for you. Find that. Anyway, yeah, so we had a great time on Monday talking about cover design. I learned a lot. I was interested. It's interesting to see some of I guess the idea or the process behind one designing a book cover. Somehow I kind of felt like I had an idea that, he talked a lot about the typography, right? And the importance of professional typography in your cover and how that's kind of like one of the big things that kind of makes a, a book stand out. And I agree with him 100% because that is something that, I would like to say I'm like, I have a medium skill level in graphic design, not really, really good at it, but I can get by. And typography is the thing that has always like been a challenge for me. Never been able to quite figure that one out. I'm sure if I dedicated more time to it, I'm sure I could learn more and do it. But I'm a writer at heart and a graphic designer. Yeah. Anyway, well, Derek, I'm glad you enjoyed it. David, yeah, no problem. Check out that replay. We'll get you taken care of there. Um, yeah, you'll find that on my YouTube channel. So here, I'm gonna make sure see if I actually can find the link to my YouTube. I think it's here somewhere. If you guys want that, there we go. Yeah, this actually take you straight to the channel. The other one is like my link tree, gives you a bunch of links that I'm at. Anyway, we're gonna give everyone probably just a minute more to jump in here. We're not expecting a huge amount today, so it'll be a pretty small group for this session. But we got a lot of great content to cover, and I'm really excited to share it with you. It's going to be a lot of fun talking about revision, editing, and how I handle that whole process, my Scrivener revision toolkit and how that works. Let's see here. Anything else I'm missing? Okay, you know what? We are just about, yep, we're 6 minutes after the hour. I'm gonna go ahead and get started and let's get this party rolling here. Let's see, oops, I gotta find Zoom keeps hiding the share button from me when I make the windows too small. Okay, let us share and begin. Okay. So, welcome everyone to our February Scrivener webinar series brought to you by the creative minds behind Scrivener and Scapple, Literature and Latte. I'm Oliver Evanson, your host today, bringing you insights drawn from over 15 years of writing and Scrivener expertise. Now, whether you're a seasoned author or just starting out your writing adventure, our webinars are designed with your needs in mind. Today, we'll be exploring my Scrivener revision toolkit, and how to revise a novel like a pro. And remember, a member of our dedicated support team stands ready to tackle any technical issues or answer any questions throughout the session. So I do have Catherine here moderating today. If you encounter any issues, please reach out to her in the Q&A. That'd be a lot easier. And she'll also be moderating and looking at that chat as well.
Hi,
Now, for those of you
everyone.
who, Yes, thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. So, for those of you who wish to revisit today's session or share it with your fellow writers, this webinar will be recorded. You can find it on the replay on my YouTube channel tomorrow and enjoy it ad-free next week in the Literature and Latte webinar library. So check that out, those links. I did already drop a couple of them in there, so feel free to grab those and save them. I'll probably drop them again in here a bit. Okay. So for those of you who don't know who I am, since it's such a small group, I imagine most of you probably do, but that's okay. We'll go through it anyway. I'm Oliver Evanson. I'm a writer, editor, and mentor with 15 years of Scrivener and writing expertise, and I'm really excited to teach you what I've learned in my position as the outreach specialist for Literature and Latte, the creators of Scrivener and Scapple. Now, I absolutely love connecting with you guys. If you'd like to connect with me, please send me an email. I love getting your emails. I love hearing what you're working on, the problems you're having. Let me know what's going on so I can better serve you and help you. And also check out one of my email lists, my newsletters. Those are great ways to get valuable tips and techniques sent out to you to help you become a better writer and Scrivener user. And of course, all subscribers will receive a free copy of my starter novel template. And if you'd like to see what I'm working on in Scrivener, please check out my Substack, oliverevanson.substack.com, or use that QR code right there. Okay. Well, now that we're better acquainted, let's spend a few minutes outlining the schedule for today's session. To begin, I'll provide a short introduction to our topic here, and my key revision guidelines. After that, we'll move directly into the training where I'll cover my Scrivener revision toolkit, or the key tools I like to use in Scrivener and how I use them. And that's gonna be the meat of the presentation. I'm really excited about that. But hopefully this will all be good. And of course, I'll wrap it up with a wealth of free resources you can utilize to deepen your understanding of Scrivener and improve your writing skills. And I'll also leave ample time at the end for a Q&A if there are any questions that you may have. Okay, so let us dive right in. Let's not waste any time at all. Now, before we get too far into it, I'm going to cover some of my key revision guidelines. These are like little guides or like little rules, so to speak, that I've given myself to help me stay on track when I'm editing my novel or book, as the case may be. Okay. Now, before I do that, I'd like to ask you guys, just open it up for you. What are some of your guidelines? What are some of the rules you set for yourself to keep yourself either on task or to help you get your revision done? What are some things you do when you revise and edit your work? Let me pull up the chat window here, see if I can see this as you guys drop some things in there. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you? Like, this is really important. This is a really important guideline or rule that I follow when I'm revising and editing a novel. I just want to hear from you guys here real quick. No thoughts? Okay, that's fine. That's cool. If you think of anything, let me know, guys. Drop it in the chat for me. Okay. Priscilla says, oh, there we go. Here they come. Priscilla says, read the entire novel first. Okay, I like that. That's good. Andrew says, check the architecture of the plot. Okay, so these are really specific. I like this. I like this. That's a really good point. Check each character has a unique voice. Ooh, I like this. This is good stuff. Excellent. Okay. Jessica said, I use Matt Bill's suggestion to actually retype the entire thing rather than cutting and pasting. Ooh, that's a good idea, Jessica. I actually like that a lot. As I was writing the fifth draft of my novel, like I literally I copied him, I duplicated it in my Scrivener project, and then I would literally I'd have it there, and then I'd actually open a new document, often rewrite the same information, and things would come up and things would change, right? By the end of this fifth draft, it became a very different novel. So that's a good one. I like that. Ronnie says, let it marinate after and revise after some time. Ooh, Ronnie, that's my favorite. I love that. So that's actually going to be the first tip I have. So today, I am excited. I have 6 key guidelines I'm going to share with you guys when I revise and edit my novel. So first off, I avoid revising while writing a first draft. Seriously, I really like to let my work cool off. I mean, if I'm going to revise even just like a little bit, I let it cool off for at least a day before I even think about going back to even look at it, revise it, or share it with someone in some way. Same is true if I finish the manuscript, I let that manuscript sit for a good long time. Now, how long that is really up to you, but as long as it gives you enough time to give you fresh eyes and it helps you avoid getting stuck in an endless cycle of like tweaking. Now that was something that was really common for me when I first started taking writing seriously. Story time. I spent my first book I ever wrote, finished first draft, everything. I think I spent about 2 or 3 years revising and editing the same 10 chapters. Not kidding. I just kept writing. I think I got up to 10 chapters and I just go back and keep changing and I'm like, I can make this perfect. I can make this perfect. And guess what? It never was perfect. As I got further in the novel, the beginning often would change and things would change. And I spent so much time just tweaking to something that, you know, it wasn't going anywhere, right? And I needed to finish that first draft, get through to the end, prove that I could do that. And then once I was able to do that, I was able to look at the novel as a whole and decide what needed to stay, what needed to go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Steven says, I'm guessing 10 years is too long to marinate. Depends on your goal there, Steven, right? I mean, 10 years is probably too long. I would encourage, between 6 months, 3 to 6 months, at most a year. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm thinking when I'm letting a draft cool that long. And if I'm looking at it at a smaller level, a micro level, like a chapter or a scene, I give myself a few days to at least a day to a few weeks before I share it with anyone. Like usually, that includes like I often work with a co-writer, and before I share anything with her, I typically let it cool for a few days and then I read through it again and I do some quick revisions, some quick changes to see some things that I may have missed or things that need to be improved, that kind of a thing. Andrew says, I've just picked one up that I started 20 years ago. Oh, wow. That's incredible. I actually have a couple books like that myself, Andrew. So I know that feeling. Stuff that, I wrote when I was in grade school. And I look at them now and I'm like, oh, this was terrible. But there's something there sometimes. I like to look back and say, hey, you know what? I might not have been a really good writer at this time, but there were some ideas there that I might not have thought about as an adult. And so I look at those and I think, okay, maybe there is something there. After 10 years, I don't think marinating is quite the root word. Thank you, Ken. Well, okay, perfect. I love it. Ah. Now, when it's time to edit my novel, I actually rely on an 8 phase revision system that keeps me organized and provides a clear endpoint. And I was hoping I'd be able to share all 8 of those stages with you today. It turns out, one, it's just too much content, and two, they're just not quite ready for prime time. But I'll kind of show you how I keep track of these phases in Scrivener and how that works. But tools like Scrivener really help me visualize the big picture, making my process more streamlined. By breaking the work up into manageable steps, I always know exactly where I am and when the job is finished. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges I think we face as writers, both in terms of writing a novel or writing anything. We're looking at all the different stages of different scenes, chapters, and stages, scenes, chapters, parts, etc. And we're like, where am I? What's done and what's not? How do I decide that this is the final draft? And so I give myself very clear moments where I know like this is done at this when it reaches this point. And even though it may not be perfect, as long as it's excellent, as long as it's the best I can do, I'm typically really happy with it. Okay. Number three. Oh, man. Let me pull down my notes here. Just like my writing routine, I establish a clear time limit for my editing sessions. Now, during revisions, I'll even replace my writing routine with my editing system. So I have a very specific way that I do all this fun stuff, or I have a writing routine, I have or a writing system, or whatever you want to call it, that I follow from day to day to day to day to day. And I find that very useful for me. And so anytime when I switch into revision mode, it's almost like I just shift gears. I switch from writing mode to editing mode. And I'll be focusing more on editing versus writing for the majority of my writing sessions for the foreseeable future. Okay. But anyway, I typically work in focus bursts of 15 to 20 minutes, followed by a 5 to 10 minute break. And after a few of these sessions, I take a longer pause to recharge. These short intentional sprints keep me productive while helping me to avoid burnout. I'll be honest, revision, I have mixed feelings about it. It's one of those things where I love it because I'm a perfectionist, right? By nature, I like to make things better and better until I see them as perfect. And so I love the revision process because it allows me to do that. But if I'm not careful, because I'm seeking that perfection instead of maybe excellence like I should, I tend to just go on and on and on and on, tweak, optimize until it never, and I never feel like it's really done, right? So at some point, you have to kind of go to the end of it and say, hey, timer's off, you're done, move on to the next thing or move into the next revision, right? Okay. For chop chop, adverbs, cliches, hacking phrases, goodbye. Now, Let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. While I'm writing, I often allow myself to use adverbs, cliches, hackneyed phrases as much as I please. Now, bear in mind, I don't have anything against any of these things. It's just the overuse of them. Typically, I try to watch myself. But however, during the revision phase, these are among the first things that I go through and like, okay, and say, okay, I gotta get rid of this stuff. I keep an eye for opportunities to replace them with stronger, more vivid words, descriptions, and phrases that make my writing read fresher and more authentic. Okay, number 5, copy editing comes last. It includes like grammar, spelling, punctuation. Although to be fair, I'm a kind of a stickler for spelling. If the spelling isn't right, I try to catch those things. But punctuation, grammar, not so much. I'm not too concerned about that. As long as it reads well, I'm not really concerned about that. That's something I always typically save for last. And I personally rely heavily on tools like Pro Writing Aid, if you're familiar with that one, or Grammarly, or even there's a new one called Edit GPT that's based on the new AI tools that are coming out. There's a lot of cool editing tools and things out there available. And to catch what I miss, to catch those things that I miss. I love tools like that because they take the part of writing that I'm not a huge fan of and kind of automated it a little bit. Now, those tools aren't perfect. And so one day, I mean, I would recommend you hire someone who is a professional, who does a freelance editor or something like that. Or if you know you're going to traditionally publish, hopefully you'll have a good editor to handle those kind of things. But if you enjoy copy editing, go for it. But trust me, just hold off to the final stages. Too much can change between draft 0 and that finished book. And so take it from me in the past, I have wasted loads of time editing and even copy editing and all that stuff, chapters and scenes and things that just ultimately got cut. It was a complete waste of time. So save your energy for when it really counts, when that story is polished up to the point where like there's no big major changes that are going to happen. You're just looking at the grammar, punctuation, and those consistencies, cohesiveness, once it's mostly finalized, mostly done. And last but not least, I always seek out actionable feedback to improve my writing, whether I'm self-publishing or aiming for traditionally publishing. And let's take for self-publishing for example. If I'm going to self-publish my book, which I do plan to do with my Mark of the Shadow book, if you guys are familiar with that, I typically have a few phases I go through. I have alpha readers, and I feel those are really essential for refining your manuscript. And by an alpha reader, I mean these are the first people who have first exposure to your book. And I learned this firsthand actually with the fourth draft of Mark of the Shadow, the one I'm posting on Substack right now. I received a lot of really critical feedback that led to some really powerful and game-changing revisions that transformed the entire novel. I didn't realize, I mean, there was a story there, and it was a good story, but there were just a lot of problems that I didn't see. I couldn't see it. Like I was blind to it because one, I hadn't let it cool long enough, and two, I just needed that outside perspective to say, "Hey, Oliver, I know you like this, but you really should just kill that darn thing. It's not good for the overall story." And so that led to a lot of changes. And I call those my alpha readers. Those are people who are like fellow writers, colleagues, etc. We'll talk more about that in just a second. And of course, if your budget allows, hiring a freelance editor of some kind is worth it to catch the weak points and offer those additional professional insights. Now, if you're on a tighter budget, once again, tools like Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly, etc., they can catch a lot of really cool errors and a lot of problems, but they're really no replacement for a skilled editor. So just be aware of that. Finally, last but not least, I'll go through a beta read phase where I essentially just kind of release it to a Substack of trusted readers who like what I'm writing, and allow them to catch the final errors and kind of ensure that everything is polished as best as I can get it to be. That's kind of that stage there. And even if I am going to traditionally publish, I still start with alpha readers. I still look for those fellow writers who I can trust, who want to read my book, colleagues, or any honest friend who won't sugarcoat things for me, to provide early candid feedback. In fact, it's pretty important, if you can, as early as possible, to get really good, solid feedback about your book. I think sometimes as writers, we wait too long. We wait till that first draft is finished, or all the way to the end. If we can get really good feedback that can help us potentially course correct some pretty big errors, that can save us a lot of time. And I've experienced that in my own writing, like with Mark of the Shadow in particular. We've gone through, I think, 5 drafts. This is our 5th draft now. And I think at least 2 to 3, for draft 2 to 3, we probably could have skip that whole phase because not much changed and not a lot good happened. And we just really needed that feedback a little bit sooner. When we finally said, "Hey, we need to share this, get the feedback," we got the important feedback we needed. We saw the real problems, and we were able to go and course correct and make the changes that needed to be made. Okay, perfect. Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna look at the chat real quick and see if I missed anything. There's been some comments. Ted, that's a great question. I actually don't know about that. If you use EditGPT, you have to tick the AI content box on Amazon. I'd reach out to Amazon and see what they say. That's a good question. But Chris says unnecessary words that if removed doesn't change the meaning of this. Okay, we'll look at that later. Steve says I haven't been able to get feedback for my book. That's why it's been 10 years. Where do I find someone to give me feedback? That's a great question. I'll save some of those questions for the end. That's a good question to ask. I can probably point you in the right direction there and see if we can get you some good feedback. But ideally, especially if you're looking for free feedback, you need to look, into your inner circle, right? People around you, nearby around you. Is there anyone who has any sort of expertise who would be willing to just say, "Hey, can you just read through this book or even through this chapter and tell me what do you think? What are your thoughts?" Even the thoughts of just a reader, someone who's actually not going to sugarcoat and say, "Oh, that's great," but they can actually tell you like, "Hey, there's just something that doesn't feel right here," or, that can be useful feedback for you to kind of figure out what's going on. Okay, the necessary words are weasel words. Okay. But yes, I like that, Eva. I like that. Yeah, it's the editing. I find it to be a very creative process too. The whole thing. As a writer, I'm still discovering a lot of things about my book. I'm learning. I am solving problems. I'm finding. I like that analogy that you're solving problems with creative solutions. There, that's really cool. Okay, moving right along. Let's jump in here. Let's talk about my Scrivener revision toolkit and how I go through this. Okay. Now, first up, we have custom metadata. Now, I use this. It's like one of my key, most important tools in Scrivener. Absolutely love it. Let's see here. It's such a great tool. But basically, I use this to create a revision list or a revision and editing list, whatever you want to call it, to keep track of the various stages of each chapter and scene. And it's where they are in their revision process. Okay, so I can see on the scene by scene level, on a chapter by chapter, and a part by part level, where I'm at for each section of where I'm at in the revision process. Okay, this allows me to easily see what stage each document is at and when to move on to the next phase. After that, we have revision mode. Now, initially, I didn't use revision mode a lot for a long time, but more recently, I have come to love this tool. It's a very powerful tool that allows you to color code to make your revisions clear and organized. And what I've done, I've actually kind of lined those up with my keyword colors so I can match the color of the keyword with the color of the revision. I love that. So we'll take a look at that. But with this feature, you can easily differentiate changes at a glance. As I progress through each revision stage, I simply switch colors to match the stage I am currently in, ensuring a seamless and visually efficient editing process. Next, we have keywords, which I've utilized in various ways to track different aspects of my novel. For revisions, I create specific keywords to mark the completion of each editing phase, serving as a clear confirmation of progress. So in this way, in my list, I'll have a list where I say, okay, I'm on maybe a plot revision right now, right? And then when the plot revision is complete, I'll add that keyword to that specific document, right? Or that scene or folder or wherever the case may be. And that way, even when I jump ahead to the next revision level, I know that, hey, these ones have been complete. So it gives me the flexibility to kind of jump around if I need to. Maybe I don't go directly linearly in my edits. Maybe I might jump to a setting or a plot or whatever, I might jump around a little bit. Once that's complete, I can go ahead and mark that with a keyword. And next up, we have our snapshots. It's a really great, powerful tool as well to keep track of versions of your documents and scenes, your chapters and scenes. Now, currently, I personally use those primarily as an internal backup tool, but it's also a great way to capture your chapters and scenes before making any major revisions. I find myself doing this sometimes. I'll start a revision in Scrivener, and I'm like, oh, nuts! I should have taken a snapshot of this so I can easily roll back if I need to. And I've been getting better at that, just quickly doing that Command 5 or Control 5 on the PC and snapshotting that, maybe going in and changing the name of the snapshot so I know this is the draft version I'm on, and then going ahead and, okay, let's make those changes. And that way, if I make any changes I don't like, I can either roll back or I can actually go back and actually copy and paste things from my old version to the new version, as the case may be. because you just never know when you may want to roll back to that older version, and the snapshot tool really makes that easy to do. Now, last but not least, we have our project statistics and linguistic focus. These are really great tools that provide insights into things like word frequency, helping me identify overused words and clean up dialogue. If you're on a PC, you can also, unfortunately, we don't have the full linguistic focus tools available yet. You do have that dialogue focus feature, which makes it really easy to hone in on characters' conversations and kind of pick out different parts of speech effortlessly. So let's go for it. Let's dive right in and let's see these tools in action. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Move that out of the way. And let's open up Scrivener and dive right in. I got my notes pulled up. And we're going to actually go to my current project, the Mark of the Shadow, originally called the Honor and the Amulet, right there. Pull that up and take a peek at what's under the hood, so to speak. So as I've been going through it, a lot of this fifth draft, like you may have noticed me saying, is like a lot of it has been rewriting. We got to a point where we were kind of using some of the old material, and we were kind of merging it with new material that was coming in. Eventually, just got to a point where it diverged so much from the original book that it started becoming a whole new story. Even though, ironically, in many ways, it still follows a very much the same path, but just the things that were happening were a little bit different. And the old content didn't just it's not useless, but I find myself integrating it in different ways, which is kind of fun. Anyway, let's look at our custom metadata here. So I'm actually going to go to project and project settings to pull this up. You can also come over here to the inspector and do this as well. And right there is our custom metadata. You can see here, I have a lot. Like they're really big. Okay, there we go. And some of these I don't use so much anymore, and some I do. This is my editing system right here where I literally just created a list, okay, like this. And you can see it kind of takes you through the process of it being unedited to my cooling off period, a plot revision, character revision, a setting revision. I've even gone ahead and what do you call it? Put assigned colors to them in my list here. There's no color actually attached here, but it's just so I know when I switch to my revision mode, that's the color I'll be using. So I can switch around there. And it's also the color that you'll see is mirrored in my keywords as well. So we have here plot, character setting, holistic. That's kind of like this idea of the entire novel where I'm either getting an independent editor to look at the entire novel as a whole, or I'm using a tool like ProWriting A or any other AI tool to kind of look at the whole thing and say, okay, what's going on here? In case you didn't know, ProWriting A is actually coming up with a really cool tool. I think they're going to show us next month when we have them on for a webinar about how to where they can look at the entire novel all at once and give you feedback for the entire thing. And I'm really excited to see them debut that and see how that goes. And that's going to work. I think that'll work really great with Scrivener as well. So we can see the whole novel and see what advice their tool ProWriting 8 has for us. Anyway, after that, we jump into copy editing, my personal least favorite part. I know some people love that part, but for me, it's not my favorite thing in the world. But I do have it there. It's like second to last, right? And then we have my alpha readers, close colleagues and friends, beta readers, fans, and maybe potentially posting the book on Substack like I'm doing right now. And then I have this one last bit that says all edits complete. And that's what I'm working towards. We're working from that cooling off period all the way down to the all edits complete. But one thing I want to note here right now, just because I put them in this order does not necessarily mean that this is the order they will be completed, right? And that's why I have my keywords available to me. This just happened to be the order that kind of made sense to me. I'm a little plot heavy, especially as a fantasy writer. Probably should be more character heavy, but I typically focus a bit more on the plot. So I have that revision first. I want to make sure all my plot holes, all the main important things have been tied up. All my characters' voices and things are something good. And the cool thing about this is like I said, I'm not ready to share this one quite yet, but I do have specific systems that I'm creating and building for each of these stages of the process. And I mean, like I said, they're not linear necessarily, but I can pull a plot revision and say, okay, this is my typical process of dealing with plot revision. These are the things I look for. And it's something to just kind of get me started, keep me on track, and let me know, okay, when I'm done. And it's constantly something I'm improving and changing constantly all the time. You might want to develop your own system. That's something I will share in a future presentation. When I do this presentation again, I'll show you all the systems I've created and how they work and how I go about doing that. But we have a plot revision, character revision, setting, holistic, copy edit all the way down to all edits complete. Okay. You can see here, I even had, initially I had my publication status built into this system as well, but I realized it didn't quite make sense. So I have an unpublished, post to Substack / website, sub-published as the case may be, or to just publish as the case may be, to kind of keep track of where things are and what's going on there. And I may not need this on a scene by scene level. I may need this more on a like part or a book level, right? If I'm actually looking at a series or as a whole instead of just like an individual thing. But I could, if I was literally posting these chapters one by one to Substack or to my personal website, I could mark that there and know that those are done. And that's kind of what's happening with this book. Okay, let's see here. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, let's talk about, let's skip revision mode for a second. Let's go into our color coding keywords. Let's go to keywords. So over here in our metadata section here in the inspector, you can see here is the keyword section here. We're going to make this bigger. We're going to go ahead and show project keywords. You can see right there that my little keywords editing system. And what I did here, all I did was just create a new keyword. We'll just call this test. And then I can literally just click this second button right here and it'll nest things inside of it. And I can build more keywords just like that. And that's exactly what I did with my editing system here. Okay. And we'll go ahead and just delete those because we don't need them. But there we go. You can see right there. We have my editing system where I have a plot revision complete, the character revision complete, setting revision complete, holistic edit complete, copy edit complete, alpha readers complete, et cetera, all the way down. And what I'll do is I'll just come to these when they're done and I'll assign them to a specific thing, document. Now, this is a fairly new development, so I haven't done a lot of this yet. It's something I'm building into my project as we speak. But let's go into, actually, let's go back. Yeah, let's go to, look at the shadow. Yeah, let's go Rise of the Shadow Marked. Let's go Ivel the Ripper. There we go. And so right here, I could literally come and once the beta reader is complete, right, I could drag and drop it into the keywords and know that that's done. And so to some degree, beta reader has been complete for this specific chapter, okay, because it was posted to Substack. It's all done there. In fact, you can see right there, I posted to Substack. It's currently in what I would call the cooling off period because I want to go over it again and kind of go through my plot, character, and setting as a final cursory edit. Just go through, make sure it actually is done and I hadn't missed anything. I find as I get further down in the novel, I lose a grip on the beginning a little bit. And so I want to go back and make those changes again and look at them and make sure, okay, do things line up from the beginning of the novel to the end of the novel? That kind of a thing. So when I do that, I'll come through and I'll actually assign each of these one by one as I go through that process. And I'll probably be updating this process here too, like so. I'm changing that to the plot revision is complete. My character revision now. So this is more telling me like where I'm at, and this is telling me what's done, if I finished it or not, right? So there we go. And once I create an actual system or I have like a document, I follow it, and these are the things I look for when I'm doing a plot revision or character revision or a setting revision or etc. Right? I'll be able to know when I'm done and make that assignment. So that's kind of how I got that set up there. We'll go ahead and remove those. Yeah, we'll leave that one on because the beta read has been done. Okay, looking good. So that's my keywords. Okay, let's talk about revision mode real quick. Okay. So if I came into revision mode, let's say I was going to switch this over to a plot revision, right? You can see that's red, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my revision mode here and go to view, where is it? Format, revision mode. And there it is, first revision. You can see what I did. I actually lined it up with the colors I already have. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Now, I'm not unable to change these names, but I know that those colors are lined up. And of course, if you're aware, you can change the revision mode colors in the settings. We're not going to worry about that too much right now unless someone is interested in how to change those colors. But personally, I think the colors were just fine as they are. I just assigned them in my list here so that way I know when I'm on first revision and I'm working on plot, I can come through now. And any change I made is going to be related to that plot revision, okay? And I can come through and make those changes and add or subtract or change or whatever the case may be. And of course, if I feel like I'm kind of switching to like character or setting or something like that, I can still switch revision modes. Okay, I probably won't switch my actual list here, but I may switch revision mode so I know that when I move into a second revision here, for example, I'm moving to my character revision. So as I'm doing my plot and I happen to know something character, I still have that flexibility to move around without actually physically changing what revision mode I'm on, right? Okay. Because guarantee, as I'm going through this, I'm going to catch a character thing. I'm going to catch a setting thing. Things are going to come up, and that's kind of where that revision mode comes in for me. That's where that flexibility comes in, where I can switch between modes and know that those colors are assigned to those things. And I can kind of see how that process is evolving, while still maintaining where I'm at, or I see maybe I have done some character revisions, but I haven't completed that plot revision yet. I'm still working on that, and I haven't quite made that assignment yet. Yes, perfect. Okay, so yeah, this is in case you hadn't noticed, guys. Hopefully I'm blowing your minds here, maybe not. For me, this was just a big deal for me as I was thinking about how could I solve this problem, how could I handle this. I found this solution to be very elegant, not maybe a little bit complicated for some people, but for me, it just made sense, and so I've really enjoyed using it so far. It's really nice. Okay. Okay, let's talk about snapshots now. Okay. Now, like I said, snapshots is one thing that I need to probably be a little bit better at. I've been using it primarily to keep track of backups. In fact, you can see every time I manually save my Scrivener project, it does a snapshot of any document I've changed in Scrivener, which is handy in case I made a change I didn't want to or something, or I just want to see how that draft has kind of evolved over time. You can see all the way back here. This was the original right there, and we go through it up to right now, draft 5. A lot has changed since then. Excuse me. Or to this version right here. Even from this draft 5 here, if we compare them. Come on. There we go. You can see, oh, a lot has changed. These are all, oh, yeah, what is that one doing there? 2023. There we go. Yeah. 4. Yeah. Anyway, so there's definitely more I could do with this here. You can see kind of what it does is it untitles it and then gives you the status that has been assigned. Okay. Like so. And so typically what I do now when I'm using this is I'll come here and let's say I want to make a change now. I'll actually go ahead and do Command 5. Let's go ahead and call this, let's call it draft 5.1, we'll say. Okay. Now I can go through and I can know that this version has been saved right here. And if I need to, I can roll back to it. But if I don't, it's, if I'm happy with what I got, great. And I can go through and I can make changes. Let's make sure my revision mode is turned on. Yeah, let's say I'm in first revision. I can start making changes to the text here and right, whatever I want, like so, right? And I can easily roll that back if I want to by clicking the roll back button. It'll ask me, hey, do you want to take a snapshot before you roll back so you don't lose this version? In this case, no, because I already know. I haven't added anything really important, but most often I would say yes and go ahead and roll back, keep that snapshot so I can keep anything just in case at some point I do want that. I do find that pretty handy. Another cool thing, you can actually, there's a whole snapshots manager. Let me show you. Snapshots manager, where you can actually view all your snapshots from the entire project here in one space. Now, I have a lot. And you can see most of them, like I said, I've been using it as an internal backup feature, kind of just saving everything, different versions of the documents every time I save, anytime it detects a change. So if I wanted to use snapshots more as a revision tool, I probably would turn that off and be more intentional about my snapshots. Now I've gone pretty far on this one. I'm probably not going to use it for this specific project, but my next project I'm going to be more intentional about it and use it and keep track of that version history. I love that Scrivener gives you that ability to do it in document by document, scene by scene, like that. Okay, boom, 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 looking good. Okay, let's talk about project statistics. Okay, word frequency and linguistic focus or dialogue focus for PC users. So project statistics is really easy to find. We go to project statistics right there. And this gives us all the information about the things that we have compiled, the documents we have selected, and additional options that we can change to kind of view how to change how these statistics are made, right? Now we're going to focus on compiled first. We have this many words. We have characters, no spaces, paragraphs, sentences, etc. Kind of shows us all this kind of information about what's going on in our book here. And we can do a word frequency. And this is for the entire novel, okay, mind you. I can kind of look and see what's being used a lot and what's not being used much at all. And you'll find, let's see here, let's do a count here. Sorry, guys. There we go. You're going to see a lot of, the article, the, to, and, conjunctions and things like that. They're going to be the most common things you got, but you can look through these and see where some words are more common than others and why, and try to identify why. Let's scroll down here. King, use king a lot. Mm, Caius, the name, not surprised there. Scavs 87 times. Lord. Okay, that's one I might want to look at because of how I use it a bit too much, I think. Blade. Okay, so I often use the word blade instead of sword and vice versa. And so I've been trying to vary those two those two words, or maybe even use different words together. So I've used that 79 times so far. I mean, after 52,000 words, it's not a lot. But it's something to look at, like, okay. And in some cases, I use blade where I probably should have used sword. So it kind of makes me think maybe I should look at that. Where have I used blade? Is it been used effectively, appropriately? Is it the right word? Right. So things like that. That I can look at characters. Sometimes I'm surprised by some characters how little their names are mentioned, um, especially like main characters. Even like I have several main characters here who haven't even hit the list yet. Adeline is there. Anyway, so you can go through all these. There's tons of them. Oh man, so many. Or we can look at it from the selected document view. We can also open up work frequency. In this case, we have, let's see here, Ned, the new champion of Quill. Now this scene, we could see on a scene level what words we're using the most, like so. Ned appeared, oops, 69 times Ned is said. That's a lot of times for a 2,800 word scene. So I might want to look at that and say, okay, I know Ned is the key character in this book, right? Or in this chapter, but is that too many times? I did actually receive a feedback from one of the beta readers that the name Ned was kind of frustrating, especially when he said Ned said, Ned said, Ned said. It got really frustrating for him. He's like, "Can you change the name?" And I haven't changed it, but I have definitely removed a lot of the Ned said stuff as much as I can, so it doesn't sound like that kind of weird rhyming Ned said over and over and over and over again. Anyway, so there you go. That's kind of something you can unpack and play around with. I like it. I think it's really cool to kind of look and see which words you are using, aren't using. Um, it's interesting even to look at some of these smaller words, how often they are used, how little they're used. There's some really cool words here that aren't used very often. It makes me wonder, okay, why? Why aren't we using those words as much? Mostly it just makes you ask questions and kind of consider how you might use this, how you might improve the words you use in your novel or in your book. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to look at linguistic focus. Now, they did change this one recently, so it's actually good that we're coming to find this. I have to find it. So you may have noticed that since Apple introduced ChatGPT, the whole suite of writing tools into Mac OS, so this is specific for Mac users, okay? This changed where they were in the Mac OS version of Scrivener. Writing tools is now the Mac version thing. It's its own thing, and we've since changed that to reference tools is where it was before. But even then, it's been moved. Here, give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, there it is. And we moved linguistic focus under spelling and grammar. So if you're looking for that, if you had a recent update to Scrivener, like, hey, what happened to that tool? It's still there. You just have to kind of look for it. PC users, I don't think that has been changed. So for the dialogue focus, I think it's still there on your underwriting tools. I have to double check that one. But regardless, if you can't find it, just go to help and search linguistic focus and it'll pull that out for you where you, regardless if you're on a PC or Mac, they both have that little help menu there to help you find specific features. Okay. Now for PC users, all you're going to have the option for dialogue focus is direct speech, where it's going to kind of fade out that. Okay. You can, I think you can adjust the fade level, but you're only going to be able to see fade out the focusing on the direct speech. Okay, so just be aware of that. I do hope at some point we can bring all the parts of speech, all everything we have here into linguistic focus. But for now, for PC users, that's the option we got. So we can see here, I'm just looking at this, and one thing I love about this is I can kind of see my scene in my summary here. If you're familiar with that, they added the old adage from that we all receive is show don't tell, right? I'm more of a show and tell kind of person, but try to show more than you tell, kind of balance those two things. And really, that's what scene and summary is all about. It's all about striking a balance between dialogue and the summary, the telling, the things that are going on, and trying to make that telling interesting. And so we can see here, okay, we have a lot going on here. A lot, there is some words and stuff going on. There's a lot of interior dialogue. There's a lot of descriptions and things going on. And for a long time, you see, there is no dialogue. Okay, so that's something. It doesn't mean that's bad by any means, but it is something to look at. So if as a writer, I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, so why am I going so long without any dialogue here? Could there be some? Could he make some talk to himself or something? At this point, just to give you an idea of what's going on in this specific scene, they've kind of approached a city that's been blocked off by a big wall of fog, and then they go in. He gets lost in the fog, and that's what this is kind of all about. Him wandering through the fog, separated from his men, worrying, if he's going to die, and then he actually gets attacked. And so there is some action and things going on that kind of break that up, even though there's no dialogue here. But I might want to look at this and say, okay, once he encounters this beast, this monster, maybe there should be some dialogue, something, him saying something, or the creature saying something. I don't know, something to look at there for sure. And so I can look at that and go throughout the entire story and kind of see the scene in the summary, how that's broken up. And so now towards the end, oh man, we have a lot of dialogue going on here, right? Similarly, if you're on the Mac, you can look at the nouns, okay? You can look at the pronouns, how often you're using those, okay? In this case, Ned. Remember, we were seeing Ned a lot in this chapter, and so it makes me wonder if I need to go through and look at Ned and say, do we need to replace Ned with some pronouns instead of proper nouns, right? Kind of a more technical issue, but it's something to consider, something to look at. We can look at the verbs I'm using, okay, and see, am I using good verbs? Am I using compelling verbs, we'll say, yeah, verbs that really, draw the reader in and are interesting. Adjectives, same thing. Great adjectives. Am I using good adjectives? Am I describing things well? I can actually see all the adjectives I'm using, where they're at. Same with adverbs. Now, I know I talked about cutting out adverbs, and we all probably know that book by Stephen King, where he just says like adverbs are horrible and evil and stuff. Now, I don't know about you, but I've read many great books that have tons of adverbs in them. So I don't hate adverbs by any means, but I definitely like to look at them and see, okay, do I really need this adverb? Yes, no, why not? Just kind of consider it. And if I need it, great, I'll keep it. If I don't need it, if I can find a way to make the writing better without the adverb, then I'll do it. Prepositions, conjunctions, etc. And we can, of course, adjust these through. I can have a no fade. I can have all the fade. I don't know why you would want no fade, because it's like you haven't done anything, but you can kind of adjust it. I kind of like it just like this, so I can still see a little bit, but it's not all the time. It's not like it's clear enough, but I can still see the actual text. And yeah, there we go. And also, too, you can also, I neglected to mention here, you can actually see how many you've used. So in this case, none. There are 84 direct quotes, 719 nouns, 265 pronouns. Okay, so, if we look at those numbers, if we're looking in terms of averages, I am using a lot of nouns and only not even as nearly as many pronouns. As something to look at there. Verbs 669, adjectives 146, so not a ton of adjectives. Adverbs, I'm using more adverbs than adjectives, so that might be something to look at, right? And so we can kind of quantify this data and just ask yourself questions and try to figure out what's going on here. It's not going to solve the problem, right? We have to kind of look at it ourselves and figure out what's going on here. Use our skills as writers to figure out what's going on. But it does kind of point us in the right direction and get us where we need to go. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'll come. It looks like we got some questions. I'll come to those in a minute, guys. We're gonna wrap up the presentation. That's it. Okay, I had planned to go through my revision mode step by step and say, okay, let's look at the plot revision. Let's look at setting revision, etc. They're not quite ready, and so I decided to hold off. But hopefully this gives you enough to get started to kind of start creating your own system. Even if, because honestly, how you revise and edit your novel, how you do a plot edit, how you do a setting edit, how you do a character edit, how you do a holistic edit, how you cover a comprehensive everything, copy edit, etc. That might be something for you to spend some time say, hey, how do I want to do this? How do I want to approach this? I'll show you how I do it once I get it all set up and ready to go for you in a future presentation. But use this time between now and then to say, hey, I'm going to set something up similar to Oliver here. I'm going to get my own system set up how I want it, and then start building your own method or process or routine or whatever to get where you want to go. And then we can, by the time next time we meet, when we go over this stuff again, you'll have something to compare it with. You'll have your own version of how you handle things and then how I handle things. And maybe we can even learn from each other. That's honestly what I love most about doing these presentations, is that I learn even more for myself trying to help someone else. And I also learned so much from you guys when you share with me what you've got, whether that's through an email, whether that's through a chat message, through the Q&A, whatever else. I just love that we get to learn together. Okay, well, I'm going to quickly share the presentation screen again, and we'll be on our way to wrapping this up and getting to our Q&A. Okay, so once again, I'd love to remind you that I love connecting with you guys, with fellow writers who are serious about their craft. It fuels my inspiration and brings me great joy to help you all on your author journeys. Now, if you're not already part of the Turning Writers into Authors community, please join us today by subscribing to my email list. You can get that at ojevanson.com/links. And let's see here. And of course, all subscribers do gain access to my free starter novel template, as well as a treasure trove of valuable Scrivener and writing tools and trainings. And of course, we have our webinar library, our user forums, our user manual, blog video tutorials, and so much more available at literaturelatte.com and ojevanson.com/tools. So check those out. And we have a full knowledge base of great information to help you conquer any challenges you may have. Okay, and right there, if you want, you can also use that QR code right there to get subscribed today. Okay, moving right along. We do have one more webinar this week, which I'm really excited about, another collaboration webinar with BookBaby. So we'll be discussing building a writing routine that works, tools and techniques for consistency, where I'll cover how to create a writing routine from scratch that actually works. And that'll be Friday, February 21st, 2025 at 1 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. UK. So check that out. If you haven't registered for that, jump into my links there, find the registration and get registered for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And last but not least, we're going to look at those questions, see if there's any questions that we need to be answered here in just a second. And of course, feel free to drop those in the chat or the Q&A. I'll take a peek at those in a second. I'm happy to address any questions or concerns or confusion regarding Scrivener's features, as well as provide tips and advice to help you use it effectively. So don't be shy, ask away. And also, there are those support emails. If you have any questions beyond what we covered today, you can reach out to our technical support email or just shoot me an email, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. Okay, so let's look at the chat here real quick. Looks like we've got a lot of chat going on. So Ronnie asks, why separate character revision from setting revision instead of revising the story as a whole? That's a good question. So personally, I separate those out because I work better when I'm focused on one specific aspect. And I like to look at a book from three perspectives. We have a plot, right? We have our characters and we have our setting. Now you could argue that characters are part of the setting and that, especially minor characters, they typically tend to be more part of the setting than they are actual characters, I guess you could say. And so how you would divide that up is going to be completely and totally up to you. I just personally, I find it easier for me to focus on one element than trying to do everything all at once. So I'll look at plot and I'll read through a chapter and I'll look at the key plot points that I get across, like where there are major foreshadowing things that happened in this chapter, where those did those foreshadowing elements get across? Did I give too much away? Did I not give enough away? Am I pointing the reader in the direction I want them to go? And does it make sense, right? Does what happens, does this line up with what happens from the beginning of the novel to the end of it? Those are the kind of questions I'm asking in a plot revision. A character revision and a setting revision, I'm going to be looking, probably in the character revision, I'm more looking at the key characters. I'm looking at my the viewpoint character for that specific chapter or scene, and I'm saying, okay, this character here, what do you call it? Is his voice consistent, right? We're looking at voice. We're looking at backstory. We're looking at basically all those key elements that make the flaws. Are the flaws evident in the beginning, right? On and on and on and on. That can go. There's so much you can do with character aside from setting. When I'm looking at setting, I may be looking at some aspects of minor characters and things like that, maybe some supporting characters or stuff, but I'm mostly, as a fantasy novelist, right, as someone who's writing fantasy, I'm looking more on the world. I'm looking at the magic system. I'm looking at the, what do you call it? At the world, the elements, that's actually of the three pillars of good storytelling. That's what I call those. setting is probably the pillar that I'm the worst at. I'm not I'm not great at describing places. I have a hard time often visualizing the places where my characters are. I kind of just want them to be there and just kind of have the reader kind of figure that out. I'm not by any means like a Robert Jordan or a Tolkien writer where you get really sometimes excruciating details about everything. I want you to have just enough to know what's going on and it's something that makes sense, right? And so that's typically what I'm dealing with in setting. I'm looking at the magic system. I'm looking at the scene by scene, the environment they're in. Is it consistent with the world as a whole? Is it consistent in the scene? Does it make sense that they would be in this place doing this thing? You know, those kind of things. Okay, perfect. That was a great question. I'm looking through the chat here. It looks like there's a lot going in the chat here. Ba. Okay, ba.
Yeah, Oliver, you might want
Yes.
to look at Jessica's question down toward the bottom about what are the top tools and uh, which is the most valuable for a first-time reviser.
Okay,
I
yep, I
think
see that right
I've
there.
I
Jessica.
think I've answered the others.
Okay, yeah. So Jessica, I hear you there. This whole process, especially the way I do it, could seem like a lot to people. And that's because I'm very thorough. Okay. I'm a very thorough person. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, admittedly. And so I'm always looking at all the minutiae, all the tiny details. What are all the things? What can I do to make this the best thing possible? But if I was just starting out, just trying to say, hey, how can I just get through a quick, easy revision edit? You know, maybe I would focus on more of a holistic approach, right? Where I'm not just focusing on one thing at a time. I try to look at the thing as a whole. And I would probably use, let me look at my notes here. Let's go back to the toolkit here. I wouldn't use custom metadata. I probably would use revision mode, okay, to keep track of that. And I might not keep track of it in stages like plot setting and things like that. I would probably just have it say, okay, this is revision one, right? Draft as I'm going through my second draft here or whatever, or as I'm looking at this the second time, I just turn on one of the revision modes, probably the first revision, and just start making changes. Okay, that way I can see what changes I've made. Now, before I made those changes, I probably would take a snapshot. So I probably take a snapshot, do a quick turn on revision mode, make some changes, and that's honestly how I do it. I keep it that simple. Just do it like that. And then I might pull in some of these other tools like the word frequency tool or the linguistic focus and analyze that scene, looking for specific things. I probably would focus mostly on dialogue and direct speech and considering like, does this dialogue make sense? Does this sound interesting, fun? Is it fun to read? You know, those kind of things. And then I'd look at the summary and make sure that all my settings does the world that I'm inhabiting, does the world the characters in, can I see it clearly enough? Have I provided just enough setting that it's interesting to the reader without being overbearing? So those kind of things is kind of how I would approach that. Keeping it as simple as possible, right? So let's look at that again. We have snapshots. I take a snapshot with Scrivener of the document I'm working on. Then I turn on the revision mode. Doesn't matter which one. Maybe I'll switch over so you guys can see this. Let's do that from Scrivener right here real quick. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, let's move that out. Let's go to Scrivener. So what I would do, let's take for example, I was doing Caius is Betrayed right here. Okay. And this is just me starting out. I'm not worrying about any of my custom metadata, anything like that. I just want to do a holistic edit, just do the whole thing comprehensive, whatever we want to call it. And what I would do, first thing is I come to my snapshots here. I'd say, okay, taking the snapshot. And we're just going to call this, for the sake of simplicity, first draft, right? Let's assume I didn't have any other snapshots. That's just the first draft, right? So now that I've done first draft, I'm like, okay, now I'm moving into revisions. I'm going to turn on my revision mode. I'm probably going to use first revision, right? I think I actually just turned it off though. First revision, turn that on. It'll let me know I'm entering. I'll click OK. And now I know I'm in revision mode. I can make those changes, right? I can then feel free to use any of the tools I showed you. I could use my linguistic focus tool, right? Or dialogue focus for PC users and kind of examine the dialogue in that way. And that way I'm kind of focusing on character, right? I might go through also and look at the setting here. Okay, in this case, I mentioned the twin moons Valoria, right? And say, okay, does this make sense? Can I see where I'm at? What's going on here? You know, setting. I might look at the characters. Are the voices unique and different as I'm going through here? That's going to be actually really useful with our dialogue focus on. Let's turn that on real quick. Reference to no spelling grammar. Sorry. So used to the other one. Okay. Um, do I have enough scene and summary? See how this scene is a little bit more balanced? Maybe not towards the end. There's a lot more action at the end of this scene, but in the beginning we have a little bit of summary, a little bit scene summary, kind of switching back and forth, kind of gracefully, not never spending too long on one or the other. It's not till the end where we get to really action-packed sequences where there's a lot more telling going on that becomes more that dialogue kind of fades off. So that's kind of how I would approach that. Hopefully that helps, Jessica. I know my approach can feel like a lot, but that's because when I work towards something, I want it to be just awesome. And that's what I love about Scrivener is that you can really keep it simple, really, really simple and get to the point, or you can go you can go a little bit further like me and be like, hey, I'm going to go like way far and like optimize everything and have a clear routine and system for everything I do. Personally, I think a more balanced approach is what works for most people. Finding somewhere in the middle there where you keep it simple, but you also have some power there. You use some of those really powerful tools to create a really elegant but simple system that works for you. Okay. Well, let me see if there's anything in the chat. Jessica says linguistic focus is so cool. Can you still type in your document with it turned on? Yes, of course you can. Let me show you here. I can even delete text from the stuff here. You can see I added that period there, right? Let's just do this. Rodney said, right? And you can see it did change that color there. But one thing it didn't, once I type into it, it doesn't automatically do it. What I have to do to get that to go back is either switch it like that, or I need to just kind of push this little button here to redo it, to refresh it. That's the word I'm looking for. So yes, you can type right into it. You can make changes to any part, even the part that's not highlighted. Okay. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. And you can type anywhere. Yep. Perfect. Did I miss anything else here? So Jessica says it does help. Thanks. I can see myself using linguistic focus a lot. Didn't know that existed. I'm glad that could help. Okay, guys. Well, I think we are gonna call it a day unless there's any more. I don't think there's any more questions. See anything in the Q&A? Let me check real quick, just to be sure. Let's see here. I see. Oh, looks like Jessica dropped something in here for Catherine too, but let me read through it. Is there a way to see the percentage of a given place within a finished manuscript? That is, if you have a 6,000 word manuscript and want to see percentage into the book, something happens. Can you click there and see this is at 50% mark? Okay, I'm familiar with this concept too. Catherine, I haven't found a good way of doing this other than actually doing the math. I don't know if you have, or if you're aware of anything like that. But let me show you how I've handled that. I actually did use custom metadata again. You can see here I have a percentage right here, but all it is a text box. So if I went into here, if we look at the percentage, you can see it's literally just a text box. And what I do is I go into let's go to the book folder here. Okay, let's close all this up. This is the book folder in my series. And what we'll do is we'll go into the outliner here. Let's close this out. Give me a second, guys, while I move this out of the way real quick. And what I could do then is I could actually come to this custom metadata and find here, where is it? Percentage right there. Oops, wrong button. There we go. So we can kind of see where I've gone through and marked the sections with percentages. And all I've done is I've done the math and said, okay, this is where these were at. Now, at the time, I haven't done this since I've started draft 5, so this is all draft 4 percentages. But at the time we were, when I looked at the book, the plot was there. Like there were aspects of the plot where it was just too much. We'd had too much. It was just too much going on. So we actually ended up cutting back in draft 5. But you could see how actually, all beat wise, we did pretty well lining things up where things were supposed to be. In fact, I think in some cases, where is it? Yep, I think it was this chapter right here. The last chapter. This was supposed to be like halfway through the book at some point. Yeah, I think this was supposed to be halfway through the book, and it was kind of That was the one. The midpoint was off for some reason, and that was the one thing that wasn't quite lined up. We had an early midpoint, and then our bad guys closing in was like way longer than it needed to be. Anyway, a lot of stuff going in there. So Jessica, so you put those percentages in yourself? Yes, I did. So what I would do is I would literally come here. I would look at the word count. Like let's say here for part one. Let's see here if I can find. It's been a minute since I've done this. And I'd look and say, okay, how many? It's 62,000 words, right? At the time, I think the novel was total. So we're 62,000 words total. It's going to be about 100,000 words. Okay. That's where we were about 135,000 in draft four. So draft five was like 100, is going to be about 100,000, about 30,000 words less. And so I could literally go through each one of these and say, okay, how many words do I have for part one? So what I'll do is I'll go to Scrivenings view, go to view Scrivenings like so. Okay. I'll open this up. Oops. There we go. I can see I have about 17,000 words there. So I can take that 17. I'm just going to round up to, let's just do 18,000. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just be close, about 18%. Okay. So that lets me know right away that that's 18% of the novel. I know this is, once again, not super easy to do. Okay. But I can say at the end of this one, I'm going to be ending up at about 18%. So we can say it ranges from 3% to 18% now. Okay. That's
For
kind of how I went through and did that. Go ahead, Catherine.
for people who like me, who are a little more casual about organization than Oliver is, I turned on the word count column in the outliner and I
Oh,
just eyeball it.
yep, that's another thing you could do. That's a good point. So you could go here and turn those on and just kind of see. Let's see if I can get total word
Yeah, I
count
use total words because it gives me the word for each chapter, regardless of how it's broken down.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's actually that's a good point. That'll save you some time too. See, I could have gotten that same metric right here. I forgot about that. Thank you, Catherine. I could have gotten that. There's that 17,000 right there, almost 18,000. So I can kind of look at this and I could then come up with those percentages if I wanted to. You could also even look. Let's see if I can find the other one. Like there was a total target. You can kind of. I use targets a lot too, document targets, and so I can kind of gauge. That's not the one I wanted. Where I'm at here. Bum, 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 bum. Is that it? Hmm. Yeah. I think it's total targets is what I'm looking for. Total target. There we go. Let's turn off target. There
Uh,
we go. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. So it shows the total target inside. There we go. Yeah. So I could see like this is how many words I wrote. This was my target. I could actually, if I set a target for all of my documents, I could have a general idea of how many words I might have based on the targets I've set, if that makes sense. Anyway,
there's also an even more casual approach using the cork board, which is you turn on the numbers on the corkboard cards, and then you say if you have, 48 sections, then your midpoint is
yeah.
going to be at about 24,
Hmm.
on the assumption that all your sections are about the same size.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perfect. Glad that helped out, Jessica. I was hoping it could be automated somehow. Actually, I agree with you, Jessica. It would be great. Obviously, we can do all this math and fun stuff. I would love to see that as like an option, as a like where we could just add it in and say, okay, what's based on the target here? What percentage of the book have I reached? That would be really cool. And I personally, I'm not a software engineer, so I have no idea how hard or how difficult that would be to add in. But what I would recommend you do, Jessica, as I do everyone who asks this question, to send it into us. Send it, we have our emails there. We just gave it earlier. Send us a feature request and say, hey, I'd love to be able to calculate the percentage of my novel based on where the chapter is and how many words I've determined it should have. And I think something like that would be really great. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great webinar, guys. I love all the participation. Sometimes having a smaller group is great because I can actually narrow in on your your questions and see what's going on, and we can get some good answers for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing and go to our last slide here. Bum, 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 and give those emails for you again real quick. There you go. If you can see those. So if you want to send that feature request, do any one of these is fine. Scrivener/Mac, Scrivener/Win, Scrivener/Mobile, or Scapple, one way or the other. Ideally, if it's related to Scrivener, one of the Scrivener emails would be best. So get that sent over to us, and we'll see what we can do. We're always happy to receive more feature requests and things like that. So, as we conclude today's session, I just want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for dedicating your time and energy to this webinar. I really appreciate your participation. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been an honor to support you in your writing journey alongside such a passionate community. And I hope the insights and tools shared today empower you to elevate your writing craft using Scrivener. Please remember, our commitment to supporting your creative endeavors doesn't end here. Our team is always available to assist you as you explore and harness Scrivener's full potential. Stay connected with us and be sure to check out our upcoming webinar series for more educational and inspiring content. Until next time, see you next time, everyone. Right on.